Greetings and welcome to Calm, Clear Conversations. I'm Christopher Johnson with Calm, Clear Communications. And with me today is the Roy Sexton.
Hi, how are you?
Why did that elicit laughter? Roy, you are very
Ev-
serious.
I,
And
I like that my name cuts off part of my double chin. That's nice. I'm going to keep my face down here like this.
so this is not going to be a serious and
No,
thoughtful
deadly
discussion.
serious.
Deadly serious. Okay, great.
Oh, terribly. Can't you tell? I'm a very serious person. I don't know why anybody hires me.
Because you're an amazing individual.
Thank you. I was fishing for that. I appreciate it.
Well, all right. See, here's the thing. We have not met in person yet.
No.
Yet. We know each other through, all right, this is one of those fun things. We connected through Brenda Miller. However, as soon as we connected, it's like, wait a second, we have more than 100 people in common? How didn't we know each other?
Yeah.
And the
Well, and I think
wonderful,
that's what's magical about LinkedIn is eventually with time you do find each other. And Brenda, we'll give a shout out to Brenda. She's an incredible connector of people. I think in this instance you had said, "Hey, who would be great for me to talk to?" And she said, "Roy." Thank you, Brenda. She has been my consigliere and unpaid promoter quite a bit, hype person, because she got me to speak at Inforum on introversion, and she's any chance she gets, she acknowledges me, and I try to reciprocate. That's one of my things. It's like if and it shouldn't be quid pro quo, but if people are helping you out, help them out, celebrate them. That's why we're here on this planet. So I do believe LinkedIn eventually all roads lead to. It was inevitable that we would connect. If it wasn't Brenda, someone else would have. But I do think
absolutely.
it's interesting.
And our connections are not just one category. It's not just, well, we all, I know 100 lawyers. I do know 100 lawyers, but
I'm
that's not
sorry.
where we are. I know the
I love you,
amazing.
lawyers. I love you all.
Uh, just a question. Where exactly do you work, sir?
In my basement now.
And
I
the
work
name
at
of the
Clark
firm is,
Hill. Clark Hill. It
and
is
they are a,
a fantastic law firm with 26 offices across the country and also Dublin and Mexico City. We have
wow,
over 650 attorneys. Yeah, people don't realize, especially here in Michigan. I mean, Clark Hill is one of those legendary names. Everybody knows it for labor and employment and automotive and different things here in this space locally. But we are AmLaw 105, I think. We're one of the largest firms in the country, and I don't think people here in Southeast Michigan even realize that. And I joke about attorneys because I work with people who are very humble, humane. I mean, I've worked at 3 different firms, and they've all been really wonderful. I like lawyers. I like working with lawyers. There's an intellectual curiosity. They have wonderful senses of humor. I am prone to introversion, which nobody believes. I think attorneys generally are. There's a sort of, and if you think about what introversion is, it's where you get your energy. I get my energy being alone, but I'm a social person. I like being around people. I learn from people. But sometimes back in the day when we were going in the office, I'd come home and I'd say to my husband, "Don't talk to me," and I'd go lay on the bed in my suit for like 10 minutes, just eyes to the ceiling, just recharging like a vampire. And so I I really love my firm, and they've given me a great platform. They let me do things like this. They encourage me. They put up with me, and there, as that industry goes, I think we have one of the nicest, most inclusive cultures around. And I've really benefited from getting to work with these folks. So I get away with a lot because they give me latitude, but they also it's the kind of firm that lets people be their authentic selves, which I think is really crucial because they know by being your authentic self, you're going to give them more. You're going to be more engaged because you get to bring your full self to the table. I think that's so important in this moment to let people know, be you and bring every bit of your background to this conversation, and we're going to come up with better solutions. So I like the firm a lot, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. So
wonderful. So only one of us will be making lawyer jokes, though. Just,
me,
yeah, I know.
I like your Britney Spears headset, by the way.
Well, I do what I can.
Oops, I did it again. Played with your heart. Would you like me to focus?
No.
Can you imagine what a meeting with me is like?
Because this stream of consciousness is exactly why we are having this wonderful conversation. And to add on or to yes and what you were saying, being your authentic self, being wholly present, do that and bring curiosity with you.
Yeah, right. And you'll be amazed at what people reveal. I think the other thing that one of our first trips together, my husband is a car aficionado. He works in automotive, and we went to the Trans Am National in Dayton, Ohio, at the airport. You can imagine how scintillating that was. And on our drive home, we stop at a gas station, and I go inside to get a Coke and a candy bar or whatever. And John comes in a couple of minutes later, and the person behind the counter is already telling me his life story. His brother, there was something about a theft of tools. I don't remember. The guy is just like coming forth with everything. And as we walk out, John's like, "Do you know that person?" I go, "No." There is something about me because of the personality I have, and that I lay it all on the table, and I'm a pretty open share. I mean, you're stuck with me on LinkedIn now, and you see that I share work stuff, I share board stuff, I share personal things, because I want people to know the entirety of me, and I find that becomes an opening to have business conversations. People, one of the things I do, I collect silly T-shirts like Sheldon Cooper, and when I'm wearing one of them, a new one, I post an image of it. You would be amazed at the reactions I get. And people say, "What shirt are you wearing today?" Which you start to feel like one of the Kardashians, but it opens the door to conversation that you wouldn't otherwise have. You learn things about people. One of the things I do when I go and join a new firm, I get to know all the attorneys, and I go in their office, and it sounds creepy. Maybe I am creepy. I look around and I see what things, because everyone has their trophies. Lawyers are particularly interested, like I am, in sort of creating this museum in their office of things they've done and where they've been and awards they've received. So all you have to do is see, there's one attorney that was in Phoenix, and he had a Captain America on his desk, or on a Zoom. I wasn't in his office. And I said, "Oh, Captain America, I love comic books." Well, it turns out he'd worked with people in the comic industry. He sent me a Captain America in the mail. I mean, we developed this relationship very quickly over our shared nerdiness. And that then created a working relationship where we could have conversations about difficult topics because we were already connected on the personal level. And I don't think people realize the power in the personal, again, respectfully so. And having people know you, but then to your point, asking the questions about them. I never know what to do in a cocktail party. And once I realized if I start asking questions about others, I don't have to talk as much. People love being asked a question and telling their story. And then they walk away going, "That was the best conversation." And you said like a minute and a half worth of stuff, but they feel like
Exactly.
they really got a moment with you. So,
Well, it comes from listening, and we are alike in that. My wife has teased me because we go into some place and the person starts pouring out their life story. "Do you know them?" "No." "Have you met them before?" "No." They saw me coming and said, "There is a person who will listen." And I do.
isn't it, Mark?
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you wear the headset when you go to dinner? You should. I think you should. The next time you go out to dinner, you should
I,
wear that headset and see what happens.
I, you know what? It will start or end a conversation as appropriate. See, okay. This conversation has been made because I've gotten a small snort, a
Oh,
small
there'll
bit
be
of
more.
uncontrollable laughter. Okay, that's my goal. My goal is met.
That's my drag name, Uncontrollable Laughter.
Okay.
But let's talk about the 100 people in common, because we were in our little prep before. You were speaking to having that diversity of people in common. That's the power in LinkedIn, and people don't realize what a genius platform it is, and they've never lost that. I can see who I overlap with, because in real life, don't we do that? Oh, you happen to know so and so. It sort of triangulates your authenticity, knowing you know people, and you start to
Yeah.
go, what an interesting footprint. And the fact that we have a diversity of industries, backgrounds, geographies following us, that you said this, it bespeaks to a kind of intellectual curiosity and not kind of a singular lane, which especially in our line of work, when you're trying to reach a broad audience and you want to land a message, you never know, in my case, who might need an attorney or who is connected to someone who runs a company who needs an attorney. I do a lot of community theater. I often find some of my best connections are community theater people, because generally it's someone from the C-suite who has some spare time and they're like, I've always wanted to be in Oklahoma. And so you're in a show with somebody who runs a pretty significant portion of business, and they're getting to know you day in, day out. And so you always have to be present too. Don't act like a diva when you're doing community theater, because you never know, someone might later go, I know he works at that firm, but boy, I saw him act like a fool one night in rehearsal, and I don't want to. You rather want to go, I know Roy, I've worked with Roy, I see his work ethic when he's doing it for free. Imagine what he must be like when he's getting paid, and he works for that firm. That says something to me. So I don't think people realize, tap into all of those circles of your network. And when you turn to LinkedIn, I sometimes have this argument with attorneys. They're like, I'm only going to accept certain people if I've worked with them or I met them in real life. And I'm like, well, I take them all. And if I have a cousin that's like, I can't believe, how do you have so many friends on Facebook? I'm like, well, I was in 2 graduate programs, 2 leadership programs. I've been in a million community theater things. I've elementary school. I mean, I don't stop. If I have a connection with somebody, I'm like, let's be connected here. Let's be connected here. Let's be connected here. So they see the content I'm putting out, and they also get an understanding of the things that I champion. And I have found it works. So
It does, and I love that. And all right, what I'm guilty of myself, sometimes I will connect with someone. It's like, oh, you refresh your memory later. It's like, that's right, they're part of this community. But what I love is when it is, well, wait a second, what community are they a part of?
I can't
Because
figure it out. I do. Thank
exactly.
heavens for LinkedIn, because I'm terrible. I remember faces and vague context for why I know somebody. I can't always recall the name. So I found myself going, so good to see you. And then I slowly get my phone out and I kind of scroll through to figure out and I'm like, oh. And sometimes if you see who you're connected with from that person, it triggers me to go, oh, I know you spoke at Leadership Detroit, or but sometimes it takes me a little bit. I'm thankful for LinkedIn for that purpose, because those connections do kind of give you some breadcrumbs back to, oh, right, I know this person and why I know them.
Yeah, we don't have breadcrumbs, Roy. We have a whole loaf. I mean, people from Wayne State, okay. People from TEDx Detroit, okay. All right, Terry Bean. Is there
Oh,
someone
wow.
he doesn't know?
No, okay. Terry Bean's interesting. Terry Bean's wonderful. I have a little man crush on Terry Bean. He and I have met several times. He's obviously sort of like we are. He sort of flows through a lot of different entities, and he's always just got bright, brilliant ideas. I know Terry Bean's mother first. You know how I know Terry Bean's mother? She directed me. And well, she first was in a production of Company with me at Spotlight Players. We were on the board together. I thought we were going to kill each other a few times. Then she was in Company. She was the lady at the end. I was Bobby, and she played the Here's Who the Ladies Who Lunch, that one. And then she directed me in Oklahoma. And when she directed me in Oklahoma, I was this weight. I was really heavy. I mean, I'm heavy now because of the pandemic. And she didn't want to cast me as Curly. She wanted another person. The music director wanted me. And apparently this was the line that was said by this music director. I can ask Roy to lose weight. I can't teach your guy how to sing. And the gauntlet was down. I was down like 190 pounds. I was running like 5 miles a day. I was crazy. I was like, I am going to be skinny. And I was. And never again have I been skinny. But I know Terry's mom from community theater. And then I got to know Terry after the fact through Brenda Meller and other people. And then I was like, wait a minute, and he goes, oh yeah, that's my mom.
Oh, that's a great story.
I
And
wish I
all
could
right,
remember how to be skinny again, but whatever.
eh,
I have half a. My husband brought me a burgers sandwich. I have half of it sitting here to eat after.
that is a good husband.
Feed me with love. Yeah. Anyway, he's a good husband. He's one of the sweetest human beings on the planet. We had to. You may have picked up on that. We had to put our dog to sleep Sunday, and I lost my
Sorry.
mom about a month ago. So we're kind of like, and I said, "Can I get grief skinny?" He says, "Stop saying that. That's not funny." But so we're both Lucy, our Beagle Dachshund Chihuahua mix was about take all the bad qualities of those three dogs and put them in one. But she was adorable. She had crazy ears and eyes that went different directions, and we. I think he thought he'd be in some ways relieved because she, especially in her later years, became a lot of our black
Yeah.
lab when she was alive kind of kept Lucy in line. And then when Val was gone, we had Lucy. And Lucy is, you want Lucy to go left, she goes right. That's how she always was. And my husband's an engineer and he doesn't understand why do you, but he has been so sad. He goes, I didn't realize she was this big personality and now she's absent. And I think when we lose even those connections, it has an impact on our heart and mind. And then we have to find how do I refill the well? What do I do? I'm having a conversation with you. It's helping. I'm eating a sandwich, you know?
Yeah, I saw a cartoon the other day, and I thought it was appropriate. It was about grief, and it said over time the grief doesn't shrink, but the container
Yeah.
grows bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
It's like,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. And I've felt
because
that off and on, especially since my mom passed. It's like there was this outpouring and I didn't realize what a platform she'd created. She was on social media and wrote and different things, and I'd helped her, but she did it her own. And then these people I'd never heard of would come forth on Facebook and say, "Oh, your mom was so helpful to me at 3 a.m. because she was a night owl. She helped me with this problem I was having with my daughter." And I'm like, "Who are you?" So back to our conversation about where do we get things? I bet your mom or your dad, somebody you get your gift from them. I'd be curious to know. I get this from my mom and my dad. My dad he's finding his social legs again, but they just are those people that can't help themselves. They open the tent up and they wrap their arms around people. And sometimes they're hurt by it. Sometimes they're let down, but they never stopped. They kept,
yeah,
my mom would be mad at the world and someone would knock on the door and she'd go, "Sure, let's sit down. Let's have
yeah,
what can I do for you?" And then she'd go, "Why did I give them my time?" And I'm like, "Because you're a nice person."
yeah, yeah.
Where do you get your? I mean, you clearly have a sweetness about you. You have just an
Well,
openness. Where do you get it?
thank you. My parents, they are to blame for everything. Both of my parents were teachers.
Oh, okay.
And see, doesn't that explain it all?
It does. Yeah. Even you have such a wonderful polish and style to because I keep trying to throw you with my shenanigans, and you're just like, no. And you get that from your parents probably had all kinds of hooligans in their classes, and they know how to just go. And now back to the lesson at hand.
Well, here's what's funny. So they both taught elementary school.
Okay.
And my mother, let's see, she was a very strict disciplinarian. When she turned, if she went to the door of her classroom for, to talk to another teacher, someone else, and the class thought she wasn't paying attention, all she had to do was turn, and they hushed immediately.
And did her eyes do what you do? Because there's a bit of a like the head and then the eyes are follow like that. That
Yes, I
would
mean,
get like,
yes.
here.
So, yeah. And two quick stories about my parents. I had to be put on a book budget. So, Scholastic.
Oh, I loved Scholastic.
Exactly.
Oh,
We
it's so
could,
exciting.
the very first time they said, hey, we want to encourage reading in the household. Order as many books as you want.
Circle the Bible and everything.
Yes, I did.
If there's a
Next
free
time,
book table, I
okay,
take them
look,
all.
you
Yep.
can you can get 2 books, just 2. All right. So they started limiting me after I went wild with the first one.
I still have, I don't know if we're close in age. They used to have the premiums that came along with, and there was one season where you got a patch that was a ghost that glowed in the dark for Halloween. And I still
No.
find I have like 18 of those things, and I still find them everywhere because I somehow, because my parents were the same way, and they didn't have a lot of money. My mom was a sale table person, so we when they moved from the house I'd grown up into, and when we moved in the 8th grade, they had to rent an entire Ryder truck just for their books because that was just that. But for some reason they had money to let me order apparently enough to get like all these, and I still find them. I loved those Scholastic, and it wasn't like we couldn't get those books other places, but something about, here's your form, circle what you feel like an adult. And then they arrived one day, and then the day they arrived, I can even smell like the box opening. And there was always like the one kid who did the one book was missing or something, the order was wrong somehow, and they freaked out, and you're always like, oh, I hope that's not me. But and you're so excited to have these fresh, clean,
Oh,
shiny books, and you take them home.
exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm still
Yes.
that way about books. My husband's
Same.
like, are you ever going to read any of these? I'm like, one day I'm going to break my leg, something not in fatal, and I'm going to be trapped for 6 weeks, and I'm going to read everything that I have stacked up around this house.
So, just the observation. We've been trapped in the house basically for 18 months. I
What are you
I'm not
saying?
sure. Oh, nothing. It was just a casual aside, sir.
But there's Netflix and comic books.
Oh, you're correct. You are
Damn it.
correct. So another taking the conversation to parenting and law.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother, elementary school teacher, Detroit Public Schools. She brought in Judge Damon Keith because she wanted children in her class to see a federal judge. And I mean, she didn't want she knew representation mattered.
Yeah.
She wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
And
I love
Judge
it.
Keith, see, I knew him as the deacon at my church.
Okay. All right.
And when my mom asked him, he said, of course. And he did that, I think, 2 or 3 different times. And I still get comments from students of my mother's.
What an
When
impression that
she
made.
did this, it's like, wow, it's like, huh.
Yeah. But when you think about what our parents did and the seeds they planted across the universe, my parents started their careers in teaching, and then it was in the late 60s, and they were like, oh no, we don't we don't want to do this. But they stayed teachers in a way their whole lives. I mean, my mom, with me anyway, I mean, I remember 4th grade, I think it's the first time you have like a book test, and you come home and you're like, I have a test tomorrow, I'm a big kid. And it was earth science, and it was geology, and it was how to identify different rocks like soapstone and limestone. I could still smell that book too. And I go upstairs, I go, I'm going to go study. And I'm up there for like 5 minutes, and I come back downstairs. I'm like, I'm going to watch TV. And she goes, oh, you studied? I go, I sure did. And she opens the book and she goes, what's this? What's this? Of course, I didn't know any of it. She goes, oh, we're going to go back upstairs. And then for the next, until about my freshman year of high school, anytime I had a test, and I know she hated it as much as I did, she would go, oh, he's got a test. And we'd sit on their bed, and she'd open the book, and she'd be like, did you even read this? You know, and she would go through each page and go, what about, and she taught me how to study. And teachers can only do so much. So, you know, she was doing that. And she also taught me how to write. She was an English teacher when she taught. And so it prepared me for lawyers. I've never seen so much red ink in my life. I had a little word processor. It took forever to print everything out. She'd sit at the kitchen table. She smoked one cigarette after another, which is why she's no longer here. And she's reading through this, she's marking it all up. And she wouldn't just fix it. She would then ask me questions like, well, what did you mean by this? What were you trying to say? Let's restructure this paragraph to the point. You know, it'd be 2 a.m. and I'm back there making the updates. And I couldn't just make the updates and print it out and take it to school. Then she wanted to make sure she'd compare, make sure I did everything, you know, and it was a nightmare. But I'm so glad I now know how to learn. I know how to write. I know how to do things because she took that time. And it wasn't. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, she didn't want to do this. I wouldn't want to sit there with a kid for 6 hours and learn about the gross domestic product of Guatemala. You know what I mean? But she did it. And I'm really grateful for it. So
Absolutely. That's a wonderful testament.
And she prepared
Yeah.
me for lawyers because you can't. It doesn't matter. No matter how much I've written, I've got books I've published. I'm a terrible writer where attorneys are concerned. You
Well,
know.
that was a nice reminder because one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I have to think carefully, real Roy reviews.
Yes. My blog, my book, 6 people bought it. Yeah, I did this. So probably whenever we were all starting to get on Facebook, when it was no longer for college kids, I love movies. Love, you can see. I mean, I love it. I love a lot of genre stuff. But I love all movies, musicals, classic movies. One of the things my parents did, we had a channel 55 in Fort Wayne that started running all the old movies in the 80s, like black and white things. And my mother would, again, I'd want to be playing in my room, and my mom would say, "Oh, you got to watch this," and it's Penny Serenade or it's Bringing Up Baby. And I, again, now I have an appreciation for classic film I wouldn't have had. So my husband and I go see movies all the time. We did, and I want to talk about him afterwards. And he's like, "Yeah, okay." This much. So I would write a paragraph on Facebook what I thought of the movie, kind of expressing and kind of codifying my reaction to it. I have a master's in theater history and criticism, so it's not. I have some training in this regard, but it's also just I like doing it. As everybody, who cares? But I like saying this is what I thought about this movie. Well, then I had enough people go, right, why don't you put this in a blog? Stop just putting this on Facebook. So I think it was summer of 2010 or 11. I can't remember now. I was in a play with the Penny Seats, and I just decided to start a blog while I'm trying to rehearse a musical. And it's so funny. All the people that were like, create a blog, none of them read it. The thing is, they were reading my little things on Facebook. They weren't reading my blog. So I had to figure out how do I grow. And I eventually grew an audience and figured out how to promote it and get people to read it, to the point that a publisher took a chance on, made 2 books out of the first few years. And then I realized that publisher was also getting $1,000 from me because they were like, we'll do one print run and then we'll sell it after. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can just have the blog. But it's been a great platform until the pandemic. I mean, every time I go see a movie, it sometimes felt like work, but it's fun to sit down and go, what did I think about this? And then the theater community, because I'm involved there, they would say, hey, come see my show. So I write about theater. I'll do concerts sometimes. Anything that really, occasionally a TV show if it really resonates with me. I one time, sometimes record albums like Miley Cyrus's first album, for some reason I decided I want to review that. So I just kind of whatever I'm thinking about or has captured my attention, that's what I do. And some people will go, well, why don't you write on every movie that comes out? I'm like, because I'm not paid to do this. I'm doing this for fun. And if anything, it's my journaling on things that I've enjoyed in the entertainment industry. I'll say for the last year or so, it's been a lot of me cross promoting things like this is pretty much what my blog looks like right now. But, I look forward to when we can go back into theaters because, we're watching a lot of Netflix, but I don't have that same impulse to then sit down and write about something. When you go to the theater and you sit there and you're in the dark, it always felt like a safe space. The world is shut out. It
Mhm.
felt like the one place I could turn off my phone and no one would bother me. And you just focused on the movie. And then then there's a heightened quality that made me want to write about it. And I haven't had that same inspiration necessarily about what I see on TV. But anyway, yeah. So that's how that started.
Okay. So a couple of questions for you from that. Uh, what is a program people should be watching?
Well, this is going to sound naughty. There's a wonderful show called Sex Education on Netflix right now. And it's about a British school. Gillian Anderson plays a sex therapist, and her son decides he's going to start offering what he's learned from her in the closed bath. Like there's a bathroom that's closed in the schoolyard, and he sits in one stall and a kid sits in the other, and he gives them the advice that he's heard his mother give people for years at home. And he's got another schoolmate who collects money, a woman, Maeve, and it's a little purient. There's stuff in it. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what am I watching? But it also, the way good British television can do, it creates this atmosphere and everybody has their moment. There's a wonderful gay kid whose family's from Nigeria and they struggle with him being out, but they come to accept him. He falls in love with the schoolmaster's son who is bullying and seems like a real alpha male, and the reason for it is he's overcoming his own frustrations over being gay. but they do it with all such a light touch. And the pictures they paint with these kids, they do such a great job talking about kind of the microcosm of humanity. And that's what the third season just came out. We're already on episode 5 of 8. So we've been loving that show, and I'm going to be sad. It's always, that's the problem with Netflix. You're like, oh, wait, it's over. We watched all the episodes. The other thing that we loved was Never Have I Ever. Mindy Kaling from The Office. It's kind of about her upbringing, and so it's a Indian American girl who is sort of dealing with the very heavy expectations of family, and she's got a beautiful cousin that they're trying to marry off, and her father died at the beginning of the series, and she's been struggling with that. But the wonderful thing about it, the kid has anger management issues. She's a good kid. She gets straight A's, and she loses her mind about once an episode, but in a way that is completely relatable. She's got these wonderful friends around her, and it was just a pleasure. Each episode's a half hour, and again, I think shows, I love to see diversity and inclusion in action. Like, I like to see a show that's just like, these are people living,
Exactly.
sports and all. Oh, and by the way, they happen to be of color, they happen to be gay, or they happen to be older, or whatever, but they're still people, and they're feeling things, and they're not, unfortunately, gay cinema for about 20 years, it was the noble gay who dies at the end. I'm like, is this all we get? Can I see somebody more like me, who makes inappropriate jokes and is not completely defined by that, but that's part of who they are. And so I'm glad to see that serial television is now giving us those kind of stories. But
that is good. And a book recommendation, one that, and don't take this the wrong way, one that you have, well, yeah, not one on the pile to be read, although you could include one of those two.
This is gonna show. I'm gonna show my age. Probably. See, my problem is most of the books I want to recommend would be plays or novels or things like that. I get more out of fiction than I do sort of the businessy type books that people like to recommend on programs like this. So, I mean, if I were rattling off books that have influenced me and continue to, Long Day's Journey into Night by Eugene O'Neill, Dante's Inferno, So Big by Edna Ferber, The Fountainhead, even though I know Ayn Rand is problematic. I mean, there were just certain books that continue to this day to kind of go, they framed my thinking about life. But the sort of businessy type book, and again, it's 20 years old, I still go back to The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. That book, we read it in my MBA program, and we were supposed to read 2 chapters. It was one of the few times I read more than I needed to. And I still, the paradigm that they established, and kind of transitions us to kind of the moment I feel like we're in from a marketing perspective. That book, if you've read it, each chapter deals with a disruptive element in communication or technology that shifted the world forward. There's a chapter on printing press, on television, on space travel, and you'd think it's like, when you open the book, you're like, okay, this is going to be like going through Spaceship Earth at Epcot. I mean, is this going to be? But it's fascinating, the political intrigue, the elements that came to play, the socioeconomic disruption that had occurred in changes in technology, and particularly technology related to communications. And I do think that's the moment we're in now. We've seen it now for the last several years, is this great equalizer in digital platforms. You can have your own talk show. You don't have to wait for CBS or some local affiliate to go, Christopher, we want you to host a thing. You can put on your headset and you're like, I can do this, and I can bring on guests, and I can build my audience, and I can do it anytime I want, whenever I want, and on my own metrics and time. I think we're in an interesting moment that way. And if marketers open themselves up to it, and, in the case of legal, it's a little unlike other places I've worked, because the marketing department, they almost treat marketing like you're a staffing agency. I'm a lawyer and I have all these ideas, execute on them. And I'm like, no, I got my own ideas and they're actually going to work for you. Let's do them. So you're in that push pull all the time. But I feel like this moment in pandemic, there are just things that were not available to people. They could not do in person. They could not send pies. They couldn't do those things. Finally, all the things that I've been ranting and raving about were all they had available to them. And it was a really unique moment. We launched our brand in May. We did a lot of things that we could do because we weren't pulled in a million different directions, satisfying too many different owners, literally owners of the organization, who had ideas and thoughts. And so we could really focus on thought leadership and webinar and using digital to disrupt the communication and reach literally into people's homes. We're doing some really cool stuff around account-based marketing and direct marketing that law firms don't do. It's not new. It's not new that you go on a website and you want a pair of shoes and that ad follows you around from website to website. I know that, but for legal it is. So we partnered with ALM, and we're doing some of that. When we launched the brand, we were delivering our brand video. Now we're going to do some webinars and tests to see. I don't need to sponsor something and hope Christopher walks in the room and hope I have a conversation with him. I know where it's creepy, but for a marketer, it's great. I know where Christopher is. I know what topics Christopher's consuming. I can make sure Christopher gets that invite to that webinar and it comes directly to him and he can't escape it, to the point he's like, okay, I'll go. I think we're still working through all that. And when you're in a industry like legal that is risk averse and not quick to embrace some new technologies, it can be hard, but it can be a wonderful puzzle to solve too. And you show the attorneys, look, we reached 300,000 people last month on our social media, and they're in these places, and they're in Texas, because I get a lot from our Texas offices. Nobody knows who we are. Well, have you updated your LinkedIn? No. Okay, could you do that first? Because then they'll know what firm you work for. Do you tell anybody? They just sort of sit back and go, well, isn't that what marketing is here to do? Well, yes, but we're giving you the tools to avail yourself of it. And okay, then leave it to me. I can reach in, but you're not going to see it. The attorneys are like, I don't see these ads. I'm like, because they're not for you. I'm not targeting my own people. Why would I spend money? Because I'm paying by the view. Why would I spend money for you to see an ad? Trust me, but it feels a little Emperor's New Clothes. It's like, trust me, I'm advertising. But when I'm able to go back to the data and show them how many people are reached, and with attorneys, unfortunately, they have to get the anecdote. They have to have the client that's like, I saw your ad. And then it's the most magic that's ever been conducted, but we're getting there. And I really appreciate I work in a firm that's willing to try these things too.
So you're the magic at the crossroads of legal, marketing, and communication strategy.
Trying to be, and I was in healthcare for about a decade. I worked at Oakwood Healthcare here in Michigan. And then I just kind of had a belly full of it and wanted to try something new, and just threw my resume out there and ended up in legal. There's an organization, the Legal Marketing Association. I'm on the international board. I'm going to be president-elect next year, which is exciting. But there were this group of women. I went to a couple of conferences. I felt very self-conscious, but the third conference, I had this group of women that just adopted me in that association and took care of me and showed me the ropes. And for the first time, probably in my adult life, I felt like I had a career and I had a calling and I had something I could do. And so I learned so much from them, and being in a community like that and being able to pay that forward with your employer and show them new things. But I think it's important when you're a marketer, you have to learn from the culture too. What are they ready to do? What are they ready to adapt to? Because I think a lot of marketers come in hot. They're ready to make change, ready to throw a lot of shiny objects at a company. And I'm not, obviously don't go to a personal trainer now, but I've used them in my life. And it's, you have to follow what they tell you, but they also have to look at where your limitations are. What can you do physically? What's your diet like? What can you do? And so I feel like as a marketer for lawyers, you're almost like a personal trainer, where, because they get the benefit, they reap the rewards, they get the origination credit, they get the money for this. We joke sometimes we're here to make rich people richer. I don't necessarily get that as a marketing person. I'm overhead. So I have to view it as, well, how could the fun of it is having that attorney find their voice and get excited and find their brand within the larger brand. And I love that when that happens.
That does sound like magic.
Thank you.
Roy, this has just been a delightful conversation.
You want me to snort again? There.
Well,
that was inadvertent. I didn't do that on purpose. I made myself snort with my own joke. That's how sad my life is.
How sad? How wonderful. Come on.
I might have been fishing for that too. Anyway, you were telling me how much you enjoyed this conversation, and I interrupted you with a snort.
I enjoyed this conversation immensely. So thank you for joining me for this conversation. I invite people to find you on LinkedIn, and because we both know Brenda Miller, send a personalized invitation.
Yes. Say
So find
you
Roy,
liked my
connect with
snort
Roy.
or my boba.
Of course, there you go. Or hey, mention, yeah, any of the numerous things that we talked about, whether it was books or theater or how we can be authentic
Yeah.
at work. A delight, Roy. Thanks again.